Right, let me just pull focus and action.
Go.
Well, it's me that's meant to be going, isn't it? Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Alex and this is TechFlow. So, a couple of days ago we showed you the Sony a6 300 and we gave you a review of it. We said it's probably one of the best professional cameras for an affordable price that money can buy. Well, what about if you wanted to get very professional results, but for a fraction of the price? Introduce the Canon 650D. Well, I say introduce, it's been out for 6 years. Let's review this thing.
It brings a tear to my eyes.
So this is the Canon 650D. With this lens, this is the kit, the setup that I first ever owned to do with camera gear. Now, starting up this channel, TechFlow, and all of my previous channels were run by this Canon 650D, and I built up a fair amount of subscribers whilst using this camera. Let's take a look around the body. So on the front of the camera you have got a bold Canon logo, above that the pop-up flash, and next to that a Canon 650D logo, EOS 650. Front of the camera you've got the Canon EF mount, and behind that the APS-C sensor. And to the left of the camera, you've got your fairly satisfying grip. Bear in mind this camera is quite large. Moving to the top of the camera, you've got the hot shoe mount, as well as your on, off and video mode button, as well as the mode dial, your shutter button, an ISO button and an f-stop button. On the left hand side of the camera, you have a USB port and, considering this camera is 6 years old, an HDMI port, as well as a microphone in and a remote in, which you can do time lapses with. Bit of a shame there's no audio monitoring though. On the back of the camera you've got what Canon is famous for, the absolutely amazing articulating screen, and yes, you can put this thing in selfie mode. The screen has fairly awesome articulation. You can as well fold the screen in, so if you're chucking this thing in a bag, you're not going to crack your screen. Really cool feature. Above the screen you've got your menu and info buttons. To the right of that you've got your viewfinder. Next to that you've got your movie record button, yes, a dedicated movie record button, brilliant to see on a camera this old. Next to that we've got our punch in and out focus buttons, and below that we've got our mode dial, which does things like burst mode, white balance, autofocus and scenes, and then you've obviously got your play and delete button for reviewing previous files taken. On the right hand side of the camera you've got the SD card slot. And on the bottom of the camera you've got the battery door. It takes Canon LP batteries and you can pick these up really cheap. Now, picking up the camera for the first time, you'll notice that it is just so ergonomic. All the buttons are exactly where you'd think they are, and they're all within a few centimetres of each other. You can reach every single button whilst you're holding this camera normally, which is a major plus. It's so simple, so easy, and so intuitive to use, and it just feels great. Build quality is absolutely exceptional. As you can see here, this camera has been absolutely battered, and it still works absolutely fine. Now we're going to be tackling this review more from a videography standpoint, as that is what we have used our 650 cameras for in the past. We will touch a little bit on photography, more on cinematography though. First off, the microphone. Now the microphones in the Canon 650 are, as to be expected for a 6-year-old camera, they're fairly crappy. If you're shooting audio with this camera, you're definitely going to want to make use of that 3.5mm audio input and put yourself a microphone on the hot shoe. Now we just want to let you guys know that all the B-roll for this video and this shot right now where you can actually see me, this is all being shot on this camera, a Canon 650D. Yes, we've got 2 of them. So if you want an example of the quality, you're looking at it right here. Now, the video quality, right? As you can see, it's fairly phenomenal. But you're probably thinking, yes, Alex, it's fairly phenomenal. You're in an ideal condition. You've got a softbox there, a softbox there, you've got nice LEDs behind you. You're probably rocking a really nice lens. And all of that, yes, is correct. And obviously we know how to use the camera to its full potential. We've used them for ages. But that's so true. It isn't really the equipment that you've got, it's how you use it. And if you know how to use it, you're gonna get a better end result. But that doesn't really matter because the Canon 650D is so easy to pick up. Within a week or so, you've pretty much mastered the thing and you've got yourself a fairly sharp looking image. And that is the thing I keep coming back to with this camera. It's just so intuitive. Whenever I got my first DSLR, I was honestly a little bit scared. I thought it's going to take me absolute years to learn it. I'm probably never going to get to the end of it. God, was I wrong. This camera, right, it has a touch screen. So changing things like your shutter speed, ISO and the f-stop is just as simple as tapping and swiping. It's so intuitive. You never really ever have to touch the buttons on the camera, except from when you're doing your punch into focus, which by the way, these buttons to punch into focus are so satisfying to press. The screen itself is very good quality. You can always make sure you have a good nailed focus. It's really hard, even when pixel peeping, to see pixels on the screen on this camera. It's fairly amazing when you're doing manual focus work. And even when you're playing back your video files or just going through your photos, you can use the touchscreen to swipe through your photos and toggle through playback and scrub your video. This is all coming from a 6-year-old camera. Absolutely phenomenal. Now the camera doesn't lag, it never stutters, and it's always there working whenever you need it. I find myself with modern cameras nowadays, they freeze up, you have to take the battery out, you have to restart them. With the 650, I don't think I've ever had to do that once. It's just so fast, so responsive, and I can't fault it for that. Same thing about the battery life, cannot fault this camera. It's 6 years old and its battery life is just phenomenal. It absolutely trumps any camera, even the Sony a6300, which is 4 times its price. Now you're probably sat there thinking to yourself, yes Alex, but this is 2016, we're almost in 2017, it doesn't do 4K, and it's big and bulky. I know that, but we're not tackling this from that perspective. We're trying to tackle this from a budget perspective. We want you to get a good shot on a budget. Now the low light isn't phenomenal on this camera. If you go past 800 ISO, it's going to introduce a fair bit of noise into the image. That's to be expected on an APS-C sensor. The pop-up flash is of fairly good quality, and it would easily be, well, absolutely substantial for club photos. Now let's tackle this thing from a photography perspective, and I can tell you that we've taken photos, me and the crew have, that have ended up in full-blown magazines, and you wouldn't tell a difference. They could have been shot on a 650, which they were, or they could have been shot on something like a 7D or a 5D. You just can't tell the difference. And it's Canon's brain that they put inside their cameras that makes this happen. And they've put their brain, their amazing colour profile inside this camera, right? And it's just so cheap. It's the quickest way into professional looking video and photo. Now I've pretty much told you that I'm not disappointed at all with this camera, and I'm tackling this again from a budget perspective and from bearing in mind that this camera is 6 years old. It would still hold up in today's camera needs and wants, except if you want in 4K, you are gonna have to go somewhere else. But do you really need 4K yet? Really? Come on. But I'm gonna go on a limb here and I could say if we didn't have the Sony cameras, we could easily run this whole channel off this camera. And the best part about it is it runs for £250. If you're on a budget and you want an awesome camera, I couldn't recommend the Canon 650D enough. It's been my first camera that I ever bought, and I would never, ever get rid of it. Mine has been Alex, this has been TechFlow. We'll catch you in the next one.